And of course, I have to take credit. My family should take credit for.
There was a moment of realization where I thought, oh, ang galing ko pala mag-isip. And
the little-known tale of tennis's finest startling difficulty. When a victor requests to confront the defeated player, the Australian Open has consistently been a dream theater, a location where myths are created and heartbreaks are carved into Melbourne Park's firm blue courts eternally. However, what took place in January 2026 wasn't simply another first round upset or another early-stage potential player go out. What happened over the course of 72 hours in Melbourne had a seismic event that destroyed the conventional narratives of the rules of respect were rewritten in tennis between rivals and produced a plot so compelling that it has dominating discussions from Manila to Prague, from the touring locker rooms, advantages for casual fans' living rooms globally. This is the tale of the 20-year-old Filipino Alexandra Ayla sensation who was meant to make the announcement her entrance onto the largest stage in tennis. This is Carolina's tale. Makova, the graceful Czech celebrity who violated every unwritten rule in a challenge from a professional tennis player, it caused jaws to drop to the ground. Additionally, this is the tale of 6 words that changed her tick into defiance, failure into hunger, as well as a first-hand loss into the most eagerly awaited unofficial game of the 10 years. Greetings from Champions Tennis, where we watch more than just tennis, we break it down, interpret it, and give it with the drama that it merits. What you're going to read is more than a summary of what occurred. It's an inquiry into why what it means, why it matters, and where next up is this roller coaster. This ride is about to get crazy, so fasten your seatbelt. Let's properly establish the scenario since context is crucial to comprehension. The reasons for this story's tremendous success. Alexandra Ayla is not your typical tennis player attempting to go on tour. She is a manifestation of culture in the Philippines, a country that has produced basketball players and boxing greats, but has been yearning for a tennis hero for generations. Ayla's victory in the U.S. Open Girls Singles Championship in 2022, turning into the first Filipino to win a grand at whatever level, she won a slam title, didn't only triumph in a competition. She turned into a representation. She became the embodiment of hope for a whole sports archipelago, devoted admirers who unexpectedly noticed themselves represented on the international stage. The pressure that results from its sort of rank is unintelligible to the majority of individuals. Ayla's matches aren't always just about her trophy or rating cash. It has to do with pride in the country. It's about demonstrating that a nation of 115 millions of people should have a seat at tennis's top table. As she strolled onto Melbourne Park's 6th court on January 20th to confront American authority Alicia Parks, a hitter in the first round of the main draw of the Australian Open, she wasn't only engaged in a game of tennis. She was carrying the aspirations of a whole the country on her shoulders. Court 6 that day was changed into something that looked more like a football stadium than a tennis court. The Filipino population in one of the biggest expat cities is Melbourne. Australians had mobilized in action. Thousands of admirers covered in the yellow, blue, white, and red of the Philippine flag filled every space. Take a seat. The cacophony persisted. Scary, lovely, and deafening all immediately. For Alexandra Ayla, it was like playing in front of a house. Crowd. For Alicia Parks, it had to felt like entering a hostile territory. Additionally, within the first half hour, the fairy story seemed to be going to flawlessly write itself. Ayla emerged flaming with accuracy and intensity. It startled everyone in attendance. Her mobility and ground strokes were clear, was adaptable, and her tactical awareness was that of a player much above her years. Parks, renowned for her enormous aggressive baseline game and serve, seemed utterly stunned. The initial it was a clinic. Ayla shattered Parks's serve 3 times without encountering a she-had. Solitary breakpoint. 6 games to 0. A demolition, a bagel. The throng was completely ecstatic. Social media was blowing up. The pundits were lacking superlatives. This wasn't simply a good beginning. This was in declaration. However, tennis is a sport that uses harsh punishment for complacency. Effectiveness. In this game, momentum may change throughout a single game, where self-assurance may vanish like water on heated sidewalks, and where the mental combat is often more decisive. Compared to the actual one, In the middle of the first and subsequent sets, something altered. Perhaps Parks made the adjustment. Her strategy. Perhaps Ayla was the one who began to feel the burden of expectations. Perhaps it was the audience's energy turning into a two-edged sword. The tide turned, whatever it was. Aggressively, Parks started to locate her rhythm. Her serves began to land with poison in the nooks. Her forehand, which has been making mistakes while spraying first set, all of a sudden turned into a weapon. She began drawing lines and experimenting with the level of violence that had caused her to a risky floater in drawings for the Grand Slam. Ayla lost the second set, 6-3, and all of a sudden the game was level. The momentum had totally reversed. The throng that had been a benefit now seemed to contribute to the pressure. Every inadvertent mistake made by Ayla was greeted with nervous moans. Each and every Parks victory was greeted with shocked quiet. The third set turned into a conflict between attrition, but Ayla was fighting a war. Losing, her body language began to betray her. The shoulders sagged, a little. There were fewer fist pumps, often. Parks, however, was expanding, in confidence with each game that goes by. In the third set, she broke early and never turned around. The final scoreline read 60-36 2-6. A total inversion, a collapse. The Australian Alexandra Ayla, the open main draw debut had concluded in her tech. When Ella left court 6, thanking the thousands of supporters who had let out a horse's cry for her, fighting back tears, the story seemed parched and obvious. One more young when under pressure, the player falters. One more exit in the first round. One more dream postponed. The media machine for tennis was currently producing the predicted headlines. However, no one was aware of what no one could have guessed, that in the media center, miles away, atop the player was going to completely rewrite narrative. Makova Karolina is not a well-known brand in the manner that Serena, Naomi Osaka, or Williams are, but inside she is respected in the tennis community. The 28-year-old Czech athlete has one among the most sophisticated games available, a retro aesthetic that combines traditional, a hint of contemporary athleticism. She has reached as high as 8th place in the globe, has reached the Grand Slam final, and is renowned for having tactical insight and unflappable manner. As soon as Makova, when she attends press conferences, she usually provides measured professional responses about her readiness. The advantages of her opponent and her own game make a plan. However, today, following sending her own opponent in the first round, and being aware that she will confront Alicia Parks in the following round, Makova totally off the script. In an instant that has subsequently undergone frame-by-frame analysis in tennis forums throughout the globe, she made a declaration that no one witnessed. Arriving, when questioned about her impending match with Parks, Makova admitted the risky game played by Americans, but then turned towards a direction that was left reporters rushing to confirm they had heard accurately. According to many sources that appeared in the media area, Makova's voice got noticeably more as passionate as she claimed to have been observing the Ayla Parks game with intense interest. Ayla's first set was lauded by her. Performance in positive words, referring to it as some of her sharpest ball strikes, had watched every competition. However, she went further. Made a statement saying felt almost intimate, as though she needed to express her feelings. She acknowledged that she had hoped to confront Ayla directly, that she had been fascinated by the game played by Filipinos and want to put herself to the test against that kind of tremendous skill on the Grand Slam stage. However, Makova didn't end at praise. In an action that is essentially unheard of in professional tennis, in public, she demanded that the group of a unique exhibition game between Alexandra Ayala and herself later in the year, not a rehearsal, not a charity hit found, a suitable fit with appropriate planning in an appropriate setting. She stated that it ought to be devoid of the strain of rating scores, without the mayhem of a crowded competition timetable, and preferably without the overpowering crowd dynamics that could have played a part in the fall of Ayla. She wanted to see Alex shine, she said, the manner she genuinely merits. And after that, the moment that sent shockwaves arrived. Via the tennis community. Makova gazed straight into the camera and stated, and this is based on numerous verified reports. If you're reading, I'll wait for this, Alex. Name the location and time, and let's make this occur. Give it some time to settle. Players seated during a Grand Slam and in the midst of her own tournament run, challenging a player in public who had just lost the opening round to an unofficial conflict. This is not the case in tennis. Additionally, the sport is too individualistic. ruthless, overly preoccupied with rankings and prize money for romantic situations like this gesture. Players show consideration for one another, yes, but they don't usually give each other a call. Other people attending exhibition games during Grand Slam press conferences. The ramifications were astounding. Makova was basically stating that the scoreboard had misrepresented the outcome, didn't represent her quality. Observed that Alexandra Ayla was deserving of a platform to display her abilities without the factors that had caused her to fail in Melbourne. The world of tennis entered overdrive. Social media networks erupted. Was this an indication of true respect, or was there a tactical angle that no one could see? Was Makova attempting to enter Parks' mind prior to their match in the second round by concentrating on someone else? Was this a publicity gimmick, coordinated by astute management group? The number of theories increased more quickly, more than anyone could count. However, the agreement between athletes, coaches, and analysts were unambiguous. This was actual. This was Makova speaking from her heart, confirming that there is no ranking points or cash prizes could be given. However, still it was unclear how does Alexandra Ayla reply. Would she even respond? The young Filipino had recently suffered one of the most agonizing losses of her professional life. She had been 2 hours away from what could have been a breakthrough week. She was probably heartbroken, exhausted, and already on a plane to her next tournament. Would she have the emotional bandwidth to engage with this unexpected challenge, or would she need time to process the Melbourne heartbreak first? For hours, there was silence, as social media accounts revealed no activity. Her team released no statements. The conjecture escalated. Some supporters feared that the defeat had been so devastating that she may retreat from tennis entirely for a mental health break. Others hoped she was merely collecting herself, preparing a considerate answer to Makova's remarkable gesture. The waiting was distressing for everyone involved in this narrative, and then it arrived. Not through a press release or a properly designed Instagram post, not via her management team or an emotional video message. It arose as a direct reaction supposedly supplied via private channels, but corroborated by people close to both players. Alexandra Ayla's reaction to Karolina Makova's challenge comprised of precisely 6 words. Moreover, those 6 words could be the most significant message she has made in her whole career. Name the location, I'll be there. 6 words that include 0 self-pity. 6 words that include 0 excuses. 6 words that are pure, unedited competitive fire. There was no thank you for the warm words. There was no recognition of the defeat in Melbourne. There was no discussion about schedule or logistics or whether this made sense for her position. Just a straightforward, shilly final approval. Give the location a name. I'll be present. It is the reaction of a combatant who has been defeated but refuses to remain on the ground. It is the answer of a person who isn't seeking empathy but is calling for another chance. It is a champion's reaction in the creating. The 6-word response right away went viral. Tennis enthusiasts worldwide acknowledged it as a passage in the sand, an assertion that Alexandra Ayla refused to let the Australian to she is defined by openness. Makova has the option to she would understand if you saw her play her best tennis. If the star from the Czech Republic desired a match without Ayla would display the confusion and strain. Prepared to demonstrate that the first set Parks was the actual her, not the collapse that ensued. The possibility, the Makova versus Ayla exhibition, has now become the most eagerly awaited unofficial match from a recent tennis memory. Promoters and directors of tournaments are nearly undoubtedly already making calls in an attempt to get permission to host what would be an event that is sure to sell out. The questions are delightful and limitless. Where is this match taking place? Does it occur in Manila, providing Ayla with accurate home court advantage and establishing an ambience that could compete with any great slam? Does Prague experience it? Makova's native nation, leveling the dynamics of a crowd? Or does it happen on neutral ground, perhaps in the course of an off week, in between tour locations, in a private environment that eliminates everything the commotion, leaving just 2 players in their ability? Another is the format. Intriguing variable is this one. Exhibition with a tiebreaker? Is it a complete best-of-3 game? Are coaches permitted on the court? Is there electronic line calling and hockey? Either are they using humans in an antiquated manner? Officials. Every little thing counts because these days, this is more than simply tennis. This relates to storytelling. This relates to salvation. This relates to a young athlete, receiving the approval she deserved, but she was refused by the scoreboard. However, prior to us becoming very engrossed in this dream future conflict, we must deal with what occurred in Melbourne after that. Due to Alexandra Ayla's heartbreaking week wasn't done with the park's demise. Should the singles match ended tragically, for the following doubles match was a Shakespearean epic collapse proportions that caused major concerns over Ayla's capacity to shut out games when the outcome is certain reach. Ayla went back to court on Tuesday, just 24 hours after her single leave, collaborating with a Brazilian player in the women's doubles, Ingrid Martin's sketch. They were up against the seasoned Shuko Oya of Japan and Poland's Magda Linette, who is a double expert with years of Grand Slam experience. On paper, this was consistently will be a challenging contest for the somewhat inexperienced couple of Ayla Martins as well. However, tennis isn't played on paper, and for extended periods of this match, the youthful pair seemed to were going to make a statement. Triumph. The opening set was a complete failure. Linette and Aoyama, playing with the type of coordinated accuracy that results from hundreds of games combined, destroyed the 7 games that Ayla and Martin were playing. In a tiebreaker to 6. It seemed to this was meant to be a simple triumph for the veterans. However, Ayla and Martins had other thoughts. They emerged, showed fresh vigor in the second set and hostility. They began coming back, going to the net with depth and assurance, and above all, they ceased making careless mistakes. The clinic was the second set. They were in charge, winning 6 games from beginning to end to 2, necessitating a decisive third set. The crowd, which had slightly diminished after the singles defeat, but still maintains a sizable Filipino presence, came to life once again. The sound came back. The flags fluttered. It was a sense of atonement, was available for purchase. Next, in the early phases of the third set, something amazing occurred. Martins and Ayla captured flames. The first game was won by them, followed by the third, the fourth, and the second. In a decisive set, 4 games to 0. Within professional tennis, which is usually a death penalty for the other squad. According to statistics, teams that compete for love win the match in the last set more than 90% of the time. The psychological benefit is overpowering. The finish line is visible. Ayla and Martins just had to hold serve twice, and they would go on to the next round. They were 2 games away from making the suffering of the defeat in singles. 2 games away from maintaining the Australian Open. 2 games away from an outcome that would have provided a huge boost to confidence going for the remainder of the season. Next, and it was hard to see a breakdown. Everything broke down. Aoyama, as well as Linette, veterans who have served in several stressful circumstances, didn't fear. They just stopped going missing. They started to erode the advantage using the surgeon's patience to start. Next, 42. You could see the change taking place in real time. Ayla's body language and Martin's evolved. The unrestrained swinging assurance that had led them to 4 love vanished. The park's ghosts on the court, a match seemed to materialize. 6. Once again, the constriction in the shoulders, volleys reluctance. The doubting the choice of shot. Prior to the start of the third set, Ayla and Martins had requested a medical examination. Timeout, implying that they weren't at their best. However, this collapse wasn't about bodily well-being. This was mentally. This concerned the incapacity to close. 43-44. The lead that seemed insurmountable was now bound. The throng which had been commemorating minutes was suddenly quiet and nervous. Moreover, followed with the brutality unique to tennis can provide, Linette and Aoyama broke serve 1 more to take a 5-4 lead. Ayla, as well as Martins, was able to halt the hemorrhage, fighting off match points for a moment and holding serve to level the score 5-3. But the harm was psychological. Disastrous. Serving in the last game, they battled to remain in the contest. Bravely, they were able to preserve match points from love 40 down, demonstrating the kind of resilience that gives you the impression that they might make it better. However, Aoyama and Linette was not going to overlook this. Away. On their 4th attempt, they converted. Match point ending the game at 67-62-36. The answer will probably include some tough choices. Does she give priority to Abu Dhabi, where although there is more competition, the rating are points worth more? Does she give the Philippine Women's Open first priority, when there are high hopes and is national pride in jeopardy? Also, does she attempt to accomplish both and run the danger of burning, both emotionally and physically exhausted? There are no simple solutions, and the options she makes in the upcoming weeks will reveal a lot about her mental state and what she appreciates most in her profession. Stage, however, let's go back to where we began. The 6 terms that have now become Ila's supporters' rallying cry globally. Give the location a name. I'll be there. That's the energy, the attitude, the spirit that Alexandra Ayla must bring into Abu Dhabi and beyond. She must disregard the 4 love doubles and collapses. She must forget the 6-0 opening set, which turned into a defeat by Parks. She must emphasize that one of the top players worldwide, a Grand Slam finalist, a mainstay in the top 20, sees her not as a first-time casualty, but as a deserving rival. That confirmation from Karolina Makova has a higher value than ranking points or cash prizes. It's evidence of the talent's authenticity, that there is potential, and the tennis the entire world is observing. The strength of mind that Ayla presently lacks, the capacity to finish games and deal with pressure. Pep talks don't produce those things, or inspirational films. They originate from wounds. They result from agonizing losses that instruct you on what not to do in the future. They result from blowing 4 romantic leads in Grand Slam, doubles competitions, and making a commitment to ensure that it doesn't occur again. Alexandra Ayla has accumulated numerous scars in this week in Melbourne, and the question now is whether those wounds will solidify her or shatter her. The detractors will without a doubt she didn't succeed in Australia. The comment sections and tabloids will claim that she choked and is unable to manage pressure, that she's not prepared for the grand stage. However, the actual tale, the loss, is not the story that counts. It's the regard she was accorded in defeat. When your adversary expresses regret for assaulting you, and when will she opponent openly request to participate in a unique match, you are not a failure. You're not a choker. You're a hazardous deviation. You're a participant whose ceiling is so lofty that even your losses appear to be victories to those who comprehend the game to the fullest level. The exhibition of Makova versus Ayla, when and where it takes place, will be an important turning point for the young Filipino. It will be an opportunity to demonstrate the world without the mayhem of a massive slam crowd and without the strain of ranking highlights her actual abilities of. It will be her chance to demonstrate that Park's opening set wasn't a coincidence, that the collapse was an educational encounter, and that she is one of the top players in tennis for women. However, prior to that day, Ayla has a season ahead of her. She includes Abu Dhabi qualifying rounds to triumph. She has aspirations from her home crowd in Manila to oversee. She has inner demons to kill and self-assurance to rebuild. The journey from a young, talented champion, there are several constant top 50 players, highlights the careers of gifted athletes who was unable to jump. The distinction between potential and success in professional tennis is often evaluated in millimeters in the capacity to win the key elements to serve out games to remain when everything is at stake, be composed. The game is Alexandra Ayla's. The query is if she has the mental capacity to match it. The Australian Open has provided she had a harsh lesson about what it requires to engage in top-tier competition. She now has a goal thanks to the Makova Challenge, to strive for a light at the conclusion of the tunnel. And those 6 terms identify the I'll be there, and I've given her fans hope that the story doesn't finish here. Tale, but just the conclusion of the first chapter. The world of tennis will be keeping a close eye on Abu Dhabi. They'll be observing to determine if the player who bagel when Alicia Park appears, or if the player who ever blew the 4 love leads gets the court. They'll be observing to determine if the burden of becoming a national symbol keeps burdening her or whether she's discovered how to turn it into gasoline. Moreover, above all, they will be observing to see if those 6 words were just arrogant or if they signify a true change in attitude, an unwillingness to be characterized by losses, as well as a dedication to become the player who is already Karolina Makova recognizes in her. It's champions tennis. And this is only the beginning. Narrative. The chapter in Melbourne has ended. However, the book is far from complete. What do you think will happen next? Is Alexandra able to Ayla uses her pain as motivation for a season of breakthroughs? Does the Makova contest a fantastic motivating tool or an unneeded diversion? Should this unique game takes place in Manila with the intensity of Filipino fervor on display, or should it be set to neutral ground to allow Ayla some mental room? Makova seems to believe that she need, and above all, do you think that the 6 terms? Do you think that when the location is given a name, Alexandra Elo will appear and demonstrate her place among the greatest in the world. Put your ideas in the comments section at this moment because the quality of this talk is too great to ourselves. Smash the like button if you're supporting Elo's storyline of redemption. Become a Champions Tennis subscriber because we will be observing each and every phase of our trip from Abu Dhabi to from Manila to the location of this Makova battle finally takes place. Hit that alert bell to ensure you don't miss a one update since, in tennis, the narrative might shift throughout the course of 6 words, and we'll be present to break everything down for you. We don't just report the matches. We experience the drama firsthand, analyze the psyche, and rejoice the human narratives that comprise this sport remarkable. I'll see you at the next one, and continue to have faith in the strength of those 6 phrases. After an amazing year last year, Alex, how does it feel to be creating your primary make a draw debut with Melbourne? It feels fantastic, unecstatic. Well, you know, entering wasn't always the strategy for the return, and that perhaps you were a little prepared. Earlier than you anticipated. Thus, participating at Wimbledon would be a huge plus, of course. Yes, yes.